Hello, my name is Lloyd Chapman, and I'm president and founder of the American Small Business League. I'd like to talk to you about our latest press release entitled Dueling Bills in Congress Could Help or Hurt Middle-Class Firms. Many of you may know that we've got a bill in Congress, H.R. 2568, the Fairness and Transparency Contracting Act, that is designed to stop the diversion of federal small business contracts to Fortune 500 companies in America and some of the biggest companies in Europe. Just a few weeks ago, we found out that the Obama administration is including contracts to dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of Fortune 500 firms, along with some of the biggest companies in Italy, France, England, and Korea. And of course, the largest recipient of federal small business contracts recently was Textron. They got $775 million in federal small business contracts. To put that in perspective, I think President Obama has allocated about $785 billion of all the stimulus funds to small businesses. So this bill that we're opposing is called H.R. 3558, and it's called the Small Business Fair Competition Act. And it was written and introduced by Alabama Congressman Parker Griffith. So what this bill will do is allow the Fortune 500 firms that are currently receiving federal small business contracts, like Textron, to keep getting federal small business contracts. So the way these Fortune 500 firms are getting small business contracts today is that up until just a few years ago, federal law allowed a large business to buy a small business and keep that status for 2 decades. As hard as that is to believe, that's the truth. You can see that on our website. CBS did a story on that we have on our website, I think in 2004. So what Congressman Griffith wants to do is pass a loophole with his bill, H.R. 3558, that will allow the Fortune 500 firms in his district, let's see who he's got in his district, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, General Dynamics, and British Aerospace. Now these are all companies that are currently receiving federal small business contracts. And his bill will allow them and their subsidiaries to continue to receive federal small business contracts. I don't have the words to describe how stunned that I am that somebody in Congress would do this and think they're going to get away with it with the American Small Business League, in existence. So we're trying to get the word out and let people know that Congressman Griffith is doing something that we think is going to harm millions of small businesses around the country, particularly small business in Alabama. So while small businesses in Alabama are being cheated out of probably over $1 billion a year in federal small business contracts that are being hijacked by these Fortune 500 corporations, Congressman Griffith, didn't propose a piece of legislation to stop the flow of federal small business contracts to Fortune 500 corporations. He's written a piece of legislation to allow it to go on indefinitely. And I just can't believe it, quite frankly. I just can't believe it. Last week I was getting ready to write a blog on my post called Small Business Contracting Scandal Proves Washington is Corrupt. And now when I see this, I'm definitely going to write that next week. Clearly, in fact, if you look in the records of the campaign contributions, 2 of his biggest contributors are Northrop Grumman and Boeing. 2 Fortune 500 firms are getting federal small business contracts that will be allowed to keep these contracts if this bill passes. So I would encourage anyone out there to oppose H.R. 3558, Congressman Griffith's bill, and support the American Small Business League's bill, the Fairness and Transparency and Contracting Act, H.R. 2568, that will stop the flow of federal small business contracts to large businesses. I think it'd be hard to find one person in America that would agree that Fortune 500 firms should get small business contracts. I don't think you could find anybody that would agree with that. And this bill that Congressman Griffith has got introduced is going to allow that to continue. So as America is in the middle of the worst economic downturn in 80 years, small businesses are responsible for like 97% of all new jobs. Congressman Griffith wants to pass a piece of legislation that's going to take even more money out of the middle class economy and give it to the Fortune 500 firms who are backing his campaign. In my mind, that makes him a crooked politician. So oppose H.R. 3558. My name is Lloyd Chapman, President and founder of the American Small Business League, and thank you very much.